Wow, Foamfoot 420 jumps in here quickly, as does Jason Paniagua. Buenos dias, Jason. Y todos mis amigos. Foamfoot 420, good morning, with the coffee emoji. I don't have coffee yet. Well, I've had it, but not in the studio. I'm opening with iced tea. This morning's iced tea, Pure Leaf. Woo, woo. Hector Gomez, Luisa Alanis, welcome in early. Jets Colts tonight. A 2-5 versus a 3-5. Speaking of Colts, there's Lucinda Sullivan with the coffee emoji. Steve Duraco, the original rock. Taro Kotani. All right, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks for working today for us. The boss man, Brian Gann, doing the heavy lifting today. That slacker, Dave Ayler, doing other radio shows. How dare he? Here we come. Lucinda says Colts will rally. Tracy Bogert, what is up? My goodness, a lot of you in here very early this morning. Good morning. In the case of Taro in Tokyo, good evening.
Now, Chris Duel.
The football weekend begins. It is a football Thursday. We just start the weekend early because we should, as should you. Welcome into the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. We'll talk not only about that riveting Thursday night football game that is upon us tonight. Jets, Colts, a 2-5 team against a 3-5 team. I think maybe it's time for Thursday night football to have the ability to flex football games, but I know that would be impossible. Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, in a parallel universe this morning, you and I are celebrating the Houston Astros Game 7 win last night at Minute Maid Park. Sorry, haters. The Astros are world champions once again. Shannon, that is going on. That's a great show right now on the radio in a parallel universe. Unfortunately, you and I are currently not living in that universe, but we came so close.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning.
Yeah.
How different it could have been. But as you mentioned, I mean, we've got a great one tonight between the Jets and the Colts.
It's a rematch of Super Bowl III.
Wow.
It's Joe Namath versus Earl Morrall. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think you're right. There needs to be a flex option.
Yeah.
With the NFL. I mean, college does it. It shouldn't be that hard.
But the issue, you'd have to really do it early, right. I mean, you would drive NFL teams crazy because they're making their plans. The fact that it's a Thursday night game, it's like, all right, we're playing on Sunday. We think we're playing next Sunday. Nope. Just got a call from the league.
Yeah.
Now we're playing on Thursday and we got to go on the road to either, wherever.
But also, I mean, in what universe coming into this season was Jets Colts ever on anybody's radar?
It's a great point. You are correct. Yeah. You and I could have made a better schedule for Thursday night football and all the games before the season, knowing what we knew, and we knew the Jets were not going to be that good, and the Colts with Carson Wentz, we knew there were going to be question marks, and they might not be that good. Although on our live video feed, Lucinda Sullivan, a huge Colts fan from the Indianapolis area, she says, Colts will rally! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. But then she has a laughing, crying emoji. So maybe that's sarcasm on her part.
Listen, Chris and I are both Cowboys fans, so we understand what you're going through.
Yes.
We feel you. But we're just not you this season.
Yeah, but
we're in a whole different stratosphere.
But since the Cowboys have been in hell since their last Super Bowl appearance in January of 1996. The Colts have gone through the Peyton Manning era, where they got a Super Bowl and went to a couple of Super Bowls. And if Sean Payton doesn't kick the onside kick to start the second half, Colts probably win 2 Super Bowls in the Peyton Manning area. And you got Andrew Luck. Yeah, I mean, that didn't work out well, but that's the Colts' fault. You didn't give him a great offensive line. You didn't surround. Andrew Luck would still, if Andrew Luck were having a good time and was supported, he'd still be the Colts quarterback, and they'd probably have a Super Bowl or 2 from Andrew Luck, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that man's lucky to be walking around these days. And to go with your flex thing also, we see the matchups when the schedule is released and we think, oh my gosh, these games are going to be great. Specifically, we often look at the quarterback matchups that we're going to get. This year, Kansas City Chiefs not really living up to what everyone thought they would continue doing, which is dominating not only their division, but the AFC. 4-4 right now. They take on the Packers this weekend. Going into the season, this was the State Farm game. This was Aaron Rodgers v. Patrick Mahomes. This was the guy who was playing for his team. No matter how disgruntled he was going to show them. He was going to take them to the promised land and turn around and say, look what I did for you. Now, what are you going to do for me? Patrick Mahomes trying to prove that he is the head of a dynasty in the Kansas City Chiefs. And we learned yesterday, Chris, that we already knew, okay, this game not as exciting as it was going to be with the Chiefs being 4-4. Not as much on the line for them, but it's still a great storyline.
Yeah.
No Aaron Rodgers now.
And Shannon, that Aaron Rodgers story from yesterday opens up such a can of worms on so many levels. And most of our listeners will know, but for those who don't, we learned yesterday Aaron Rodgers tests positive for COVID-19. And the NFL considers him unvaccinated. And this is crazy, Shannon. We heard the soundbite all day yesterday. Earlier in the season, in a press conference, he is asked a direct question by a reporter. And the reporter says, have you been vaccinated? And Aaron Rodgers' answer is, and I quote, yeah, I've been immunized. What? And then the reporters just, well, all right. And wasn't there somebody in the room who goes, well, the question was vaccinated. And I guess, and maybe it was like a Jedi mind trick, and maybe just everybody in the room, it's like Aaron Rodgers put the voodoo on them. It's like, you will hear the word immunized, but you will believe that I said vaccinated. And now the NFL finding and asserting that he's not vaccinated. Every NFL COVID-19 protocol he has violated. He's been in quarterback rooms without a mask. He's been in press conferences without a mask. He's been at team activities on the road, in hotels, moments where you're not even supposed to congregate with other teammates if you're not vaccinated. Aaron Rodgers operated by a different set of rules all season long.
Yeah, when it comes to that quote, I think he also got away with it a little bit because of, he just, the reporter asked if he was vaccinated. And obviously everyone understands that he's referring to the COVID-19 vaccination.
Yeah.
But Aaron Rodgers, by saying, I've been immunized, could against the measles, against chickenpox.
Yeah.
So
technically he answered, if he ever got the polio vaccine,
right?
You're right. Technically he answered. The question was, have you been vaccinated? And he said, yeah, I'm immunized.
Right.
Wow.
And
yeah.
I think that clip, along with, because at the end of the day, it's his personal choice, but it's the what you said. There are protocols that he had broken because. And I don't know how, because we learned that the NFL has ruled him as unvaccinated for this whole time.
Yes.
And that's fine. Again, it's not, as the public, we don't need to know that information. But when you're seeing other players who aren't vaccinated and they're abiding by the rules, and there are some tough rules to abide by, I would think. Your social life is next to none while you're in season. And then he's out there, just being Mr. Aaron Rodgers. That's not fair.
And Shannon, if you believe in science, and if you believe in medicine, and if you believe in the vast majority of doctors and epidemiologists, and call me quaint, I know I'm old school. I believe in medicine and science and experts. I know it's crazy these days to believe in those things. But if you do, and I've kind of, been amused by Aaron Rodgers. I've kind of liked him even more since the Packers went and got Jordan Love. So his kind of sticking it to the Packers and being surly and a diva, more of a diva and difficult to work with in the offseason, I kind of understood and was amused by. But if you believe in medicine and science and epidemiologists and doctors, this dude's been putting other people at risk. He's been putting reporters at risk in the press conferences. He's been traveling on the road, going into hotels, putting people at risk. I am not cool with what I've learned over the last 24 hours about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and then to kind of pile on, people immediately they get personal really quickly when they're upset with somebody, and a lot of people are upset with Aaron Rodgers, and they went to fiance Shailene Woodley and dug up some old interviews of hers where she talks about how she eats clay, she makes her own medicines. So the jokes were flying about Aaron Rodgers, and he was vaccinated, but it was given to him by his fiance, and so it did what it did or did not do. It blew up so quickly, and I'm almost disappointed that Cole Beasley deleted his Twitter after the Bills beat Kansas City earlier this season, because I'm ready for a Cole Beasley rant. I'm ready.
Yeah, there's so much, and there's even more on that whole alternative vaccine idea. But right now it's 6:20. We do this beginning at 6:20 all day, all until 9:20 tonight. So every hour on the 20s between right now and 9:20 tonight, wherever you're listening to us, your shot at $1,000. It's the grand in your hand cash contest. You get a keyword right now and where to text it, and you got a shot at $1,000. Here it is.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword WORK to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's WORK to 200-200.
Work. Good luck. That's the keyword. Our thanks as well to the boss man, Brian Gann, who is making the show go this morning. Not that he's busy, not that he isn't responsible for radio stations, news divisions across multiple states for iHeartRadio, and he's multitasking and good enough to come in here and work for us and with us this morning. And Shannon, Dave Ayler, how dare he go work at another radio station this morning? Doesn't he? Aren't we his first priority? I guess not. I guess there's this 50,000 watt blowtorch known as News Radio 1200 WOAI. He is down the hall doing the heavy lifting down there. So, all right, back to Aaron Rodgers for a second. And my goodness, there's so much we're going to talk about all morning long. The Aaron Rodgers thing we're on now. There's new revelations in the Henry Ruggs car crash in Las Vegas. We now have a credible estimate of how fast he was going at the time of impact that killed a 23-year-old woman who now, as we learn, that car exploded. The car that Henry Ruggs hit exploded into flames. She was heard screaming and trapped in that vehicle as it burned. The whole thing is just god-awful and worse than we knew it was 24 hours ago. We'll walk through the details that we know. And by the way, the romance is over, apparently, between Odell Beckham Jr., the Cleveland Browns, and Baker Mayfield. We'll get into that. Spurs lose a heartbreaker last night. Shannon, to your Dallas Mavericks, 109-108. The Spurs are 2-6 now in 5 of their 6 losses, including last night. They were right there at the end with an opportunity to win the game. Spurs had the ball with 2.7 seconds remaining. Kelvin Johnson trying to get the ball to DeJounte Murray for the game winner. Kind of threw it too high to him. It didn't happen. So for the second time in about a week, Shannon, so you should have bet me on these games. Your Dallas Mavericks have defeated my beloved San Antonio Spurs.
I'm glad that it was such a great game. I mean, that's what you love about rivalries, and that's what you want to see out of them. it does make me a little nervous as a Mavericks fan that the Spurs were that close, and it was a close one throughout the game.
That makes you nervous that the Spurs were that. You should have won by 40, huh?
Well,
it makes me nervous that the Spurs were that close.
I mean, the noise of Spurs not they don't have a superstar.
I think they're better than people think they are.
Well, and they're proving it with close games like that one. But I do have some calm over me now, Chris, because they play 4 times a season. They've now already played twice. I can do no worse than tying the series this year.
And they play later this month.
Yes.
Again in a couple weeks at the AT&T Center. Yeah. And we're working on getting you to that game. For an eyewitness report of that game. So that we think that's going to happen. We're about to get confirmation on that, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Exciting.
Woo!
I can't wait.
Speaking of COVID, and we will get back to the Aaron Rodgers thing, because I think today probably the biggest story in sports is the Aaron Rodgers thing, but we're going to be all over a gazillion stories this morning. But speaking of COVID, and if you think COVID's over, Spurs starting center Jakob Poeltl out last night for health and safety protocols. Now, nobody said specifically, the NBA and the Spurs a little more guarded, a little more cryptic on this, but Jakob Poeltl out for health and safety protocols. Shannon, we can assume he either contacted someone who was positive for COVID, and this is a major precaution, or we assume that perhaps he tested positive. We don't know either way, but bottom line is Aaron Rodgers on a big scale, and for the Spurs, he's their starting center. COVID continues to affect sports in a big way.
Is this considered flu season that we're in?
Yes, it is.
Really, okay.
It will peak in the next few months,
right?
December, January, Feb. But yeah, we are. I think once you hit October, we are in flu season, and they recommend you get flu shots.
Because it does seem like within the last few weeks here, we've started to see more folks be testing positive or dealing with contact tracing, whatever it may be, in all sports. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. And
I bet you it does.
It'll be interesting to see if overall numbers start to inflate, or if leagues start to add regulations back in that maybe they relaxed on earlier in the year.
Yeah. Well, see, one of the reason flu season starts and peaks is it gets cold outside across North America and the Northern Hemisphere. So there are more people indoors. And just like COVID, we learned less problematic if you're outdoors in big open spaces, more problematic if you're indoors and breathing other people's air. And across most of the country, and here in Austin, San Antonio, and across Texas this morning, temperatures are in the high 40s, low 50s. So people are staying indoors. So yeah, I think you got a great theory. It's flu season, and just because of the nature of it, we're probably going to see more COVID, and we are seeing a little mini spike here after we've had some encouraging numbers as far as overall numbers going down. Coming up, the high five play of the day. Somebody deserves a high five. I think you're going to find this one kind of unusual, but certainly apropos. Don't forget, 7 o'clock hour, the Salty Shakedown, always outstanding. Sports history, sports birthdays. Couple of outstanding guests coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Aaron Rodgers certainly will go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but is he behaving badly right now? We'll talk about that with James Allen and more. And UTSA, are they getting no respect from the college football playoff ranking committee? We'll talk about that and more with the voice of UTSA football, UTSA athletics, Andy Everett, going to join us after 8:30. NFL, college football, NBA, and more. We are all over it. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney, the boss man, Brian Gann, making the show go. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Let's see. And Brian, did you notice Shannon sent an email with audio of Derek Carr for the high five? Okay, super. I was just checking that you got that. Okay, thank you. Yep, that's two. Yeah, that's the only two. Those two audios, and then the guests in the 8, and that's Usually that's the case. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Yeah. True. Okay. Thank you. All right, y'all. I do believe I need some coffee, but let's say hi to everybody first. In order that I saw you, Jason Paniagua, Foamfoot 420, Hector Gomez, Luisa Alanis, Taro Kotani, Steve Duraco, Lucinda Sullivan, Tracy Bogert, John Williams, Wes Perkins, Anthony Del Toro, David Valles, Robert Browning joining us from Japan this morning. Let me see here. I think I do have a photo of today's guests and a visualization of today's show. Let's see if I can. There it is. There it is. It's a Throwback Thursday. Upper left. Steve Duraco will remember that. Playing football for the Northwest YMCA. I was a wide receiver and a defensive end. I went both ways. So that's Throwback me, Throwback Shannon, Aaron Rodgers. Second row, James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Andy Everett. Henry Ruggs III on the bottom row, along with Odell Beckham Jr. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to grab some coffee. Do I have time? I think I do. Coffee is necessary. We had a Foamfoot 420 with the coffee emoji and Lucinda Sullivan. So I can't let you drink alone. That would be rude of me. I don't want to be rude. I aspire to be not rude, or to be not rude. What am I, Yoda? To not be rude. To be not rude. Rude do not be. All right, back in a sec. Mike Taylor, for your viewing pleasure. Trying to get the glare off of him. Be right back with coffee. Welcome back. What is happening?
I had that Aaron Rodgers cut.
Which one?
About him talking about being immunized.
Yes.
Just tell him it's in our Those Were the Days.
Okay.
Or Those Were the Days file.
Will he know how to find that?
I'll tell you. It's WOAI Dave.
Give me one second. WOAI Dave.
Yeah. And then it will be the TWTD 11/4/21. And it's cut number 5.
Super. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that's huge. That's such a big story.
It's the whole fucking thing that went down. I think it was August 26th when you did this.
Wow.
Yeah.
They
flat out asked him if he's
I
vaccinated.
know. And we were talking about that, and he goes, yeah, I'm immunized.
Yes.
But technically, the whole thing is accurate because he could have been talking about the polio vaccine when he was a kid. Are you vaccinated? Yeah, I'm immunized. Back in.
It's 29 seconds long and him talking about it. And I mean, flat out lied.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that.
Hey, no worries.
I appreciate it. That was Tim Merriman from 1200 WOAI. He's got, and we may run the full Aaron Rodgers response to the media when yeah, I'm immunized. Foamfoot 420, what is up? Taylor has a huge head in that cutout. Yes. I would agree with that. Yeah, Wes, I think you're going to hear a little more about that coming up here in a moment. Well, actually, no. But we will talk. We will talk about that this morning. But it is amazing. How tough is it? It's San Antonio. In Los Angeles, it's UCLA. In San Antonio, it's UTSA. UTEP is UT El Paso. How tough is that? Jason, you're right. They did say before the season began that 100% of the Spurs team and staff were vaccinated. Now, more and more, and again, this doesn't mean the vaccine doesn't work. You know, the vaccine, depending on whether it's Pfizer or Moderna or whatever, Johnson & Johnson, they tend to be like 91, 94% effective. And they're also very effective in that if you get the virus, you are less transmissible, able to transmit it to other people. So, and especially apparently the Delta variant, much more, and again, you're still in the 90s on protection, but the Delta variant, much more resistant to the vaccine based on science and medicine and experts and epidemiologists. And I know, and I'm sorry, flat earthers, anti-vaxxers. I know I'm antiquated and quaint for believing in this science and medicine. I know leeches are probably a great medical option. All right. Give me coffee. For the love of God. Thank you, sir. Hector Gomez says, I am fully vaccinated and just got my booster a couple of weeks ago, but I still wear a mask and social distance. Hector Gomez, that is because you are a responsible adult and you are a good human being, and we could use more of you for the love of God. Woo!
Back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney.
Little Rolling Stones for you. Love me some Stones. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Shannon, the Rolling Stones were at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas a couple of nights ago. I saw the Cotton Bowl social media pages, including Instagram, repost photos that Mick Jagger took in front of the Cotton Bowl, which I just think is so cool. I mean, you talk about worlds collide, an iconic sports venue, Texas OU every year. If you know your Dallas Cowboys history, of course, the Cowboys began in the Cotton Bowl in the 1960s. And then the Rolling Stones, one of the greatest, some will argue, and I'll dispute that, Beatles, the greatest rock and roll band ever, the Rolling Stones. So that's pretty cool. And apparently there were some people, Shannon, who went to the concert expecting, there were rumors that the Stones were going to bring out John F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy Jr., both of whom are dead, but that apparently they were really alive and that they were going to come out. And apparently the QAnon people, there was some kind of a rumor on social media that the Stones were going to bring out John F. Kennedy and JFK Jr., and they were going to lead America to a new era of the shining castle on the hill. But there were a number of people there. That's why they went to see the big reveal.
I think I saw Kennedy trending for something like that.
He was supposed to go to the concert.
The Stones are here in Austin performing out at Coda, I think the 20th.
Whoa!
So it'll be interesting to see what rumors drum up there.
And you know what? And how old is Mick Jagger and Keith Richards now? And sadly, just a couple of months ago, maybe not even 2 months ago, we lost Charlie Watts, their drummer. But as an aging guy, Shannon, and you could probably accurately call me an old guy, it warms my heart to see the Rolling Stones and aging rockers still when you still do it and you still sound great. It's like a couple of weeks ago, I went to Houston, as you know, and I saw James Taylor and Jackson Brown, and they still sounded great. I mean, I get if you're old and you don't sound good anymore, then okay, that's a little pathetic, and maybe it's time to retire. But if, like the Rolling Stones and James Taylor and Jackson Brown, you still got it, and you can still perform to a huge venue and rock the place, A, more power to you, and B, as an old guy, you're giving me hope that I may still be able to function in this world for another few decades.
Yeah, they just need 2 weeks between each show.
Yes,
in order to do it.
To get their Metamucil and whatever you get. All right, there you go. All right, it is time, Shannon, and everybody listening, for the high five play of the day. We do this every morning at this time because we should, because people deserve high fives in the world of sports, and even occasionally we venture outside the world of sports. We won't this morning because this will be pretty interesting for you. The high five play of the day is appropriately sponsored by High Five, 2 locations in the Austin area. If you love sports, if you love great food, if you love great drinks, if you love to play great games, High Five's got it all for you. Big screen TVs, great food, great drinks, drink specials, food specials, and of course, bowling, laser tag, axe throwing, tons of other games you can enjoy. Go check out one of the 2 High Five locations in Austin. Shannon, who shall we give a high five to this morning?
We're going to give our high five today to Derek Carr. This guy has been through quite a bit throughout his NFL career. Not only does he come into the league as the younger brother of one David Carr, who holds a special place in a lot of football fans' hearts because he was the first quarterback for the Texans, right? He has that historical moment, and though he did not do much for them playing wise, he still, is known as that guy. So he had big shoes to fill coming in. And then he goes to the Raiders, who were struggling a bit, to say the least. And he has then he ends up with a great season, an MVP-like season. He gets hurt. And then from there, there's a conversation that starts to shift of maybe he's not the guy. Maybe he was never really the guy. It was a bit of a fluke. He gets the new coach in John Gruden. There's rumors that Gruden really not a fan of Carr. He's really looking elsewhere to bring in a different guy. They end up getting houses next to each other in Vegas before the move. So that is awkward. And then this year, they're playing pretty well. They're in it to win it. Their division is wide open. Then the emails come out. and what happens with John Gruden happens. But as the face of the franchise, as the quarterback of that franchise, Derek Carr has to bear a certain amount of the brunt. And I think he handled that situation very well. Go to this week, and now we've got this situation with his wide receiver and seemingly friend, Henry Ruggs, who is in an accident early Tuesday morning. He's driving at what seems that we know now to be 156 miles an hour just before the crash, charged with a DUI, and ends up killing someone in the accident. And once again, Derek Carr has to face, during his weekly pressers, questions about a situation that doesn't involve him personally and the fact that he wasn't there, he wasn't a part of it. But again, it involves the franchise. He's the face of the franchise. He's the quarterback of the franchise. He's the leader of that team. And he has to face the brunt and deal with these questions. And I just want to give a high five to him because I think through all of it, he has dealt with it very well, very graciously. He's said all of the right things. And this is something he said yesterday that I want everyone to hear.
You have a chance to talk to Henry yet?
No, honestly, with what we were told, I just didn't know if we were able to. Haven't reached out. I will always be here for him. That won't change, and I'll prove that over the course of time to him, not to anybody else. But he needs people to love him right now. He's probably feeling a certain type of way about himself right now, and he needs to be loved. And if no one else will do it, I'll do it.
I just think that's fantastic, Chris. What Ruggs did, obviously, not great. It's not, no one should ever put themselves in that situation and then in turn put others in that situation. But for Derek Carr to continue to be a support system when someone is clearly going through probably the worst time in their life and probably doesn't have a lot of support and is, again, an NFL player. So anytime he searches his name, something awful is going to come up. I just think Derek Carr's a great teammate, a great human, and it makes me all that much more happier to see him be successful on the field of play.
Well, and what I think even more so, and I agree with everything you said about Derek Carr, but at the outset of that press conference, he first and foremost cited the woman who was killed and expressed his deep, profound condolences for her and for her family. So that, the Henry Ruggs question from a reporter was a follow-up, have you talked to Henry? So yeah, I mean, both in expressing condolences and just absolute sadness and shock and horror over the death of that 23-year-old woman who, and we've heard more details you mentioned, based on onboard Henry Ruggs's car. We know the speed of the car when from the computer on the car, when the airbags deployed. We know the speed of the car at impact was 156 miles per hour. But the worst part that we learned yesterday, among other things, was that 23-year-old woman in that car, she was in the car with her dog several blocks away from her home at 3:39 in the morning when she was rear-ended by Henry Ruggs' vehicle at apparently 156 miles per hour. Her car burst into flames, and we heard that witnesses on the scene heard her screaming in that car, and they could not get her out because she was trapped in that car and the flames were increasing. It was a horrible, horrible death that woman suffered. So first, yes, Derek Carr was very sincere and obviously right and forthcoming in expressing deep sorrow for that horrible, unspeakable tragedy. But yes, as well, Shannon, what you just played, by all accounts, Henry Ruggs III did not have a previous criminal record. What he did was horrible. He made a god-awful, life-changing, life-altering, for the woman, life-ending decision in his life that he'll never get over. However, should Henry Ruggs III be scorned and damned for the rest of his life for one night of a horrible, tragic decision? I think it shows a lot of humanity on the part of Derek Carr to help us to understand that this man, Henry Ruggs III, needs to be loved right now. I mean, he needs people to love him. There have been people, obviously, in situations like this before who have taken their own lives when they realize what they've done to somebody else and what they've done to their life. It's a horribly tragic circumstance, Shannon. And again, for all of us, it's a teachable moment. When you drink and drive, things like this and Henry Ruggs wasn't expecting this, and Henry Ruggs was so impaired he didn't know this could happen, and it did. And especially, and Shannon, you and I talked about this yesterday, there have always been taxis, and that was always a good idea if you were drinking and impaired. But now in the era of Lyft and Uber, you pick it up, it's in your pocket, it's in your phone, and the transaction is done on your phone. You don't even need cash. It goes right to your credit card. Most people have it set up. My God, I wish he would have made a better decision that night.
Yeah. And Derek Carr, and he has said it before about if you need me at 3 a.m. to come pick you up and drive you home safely, I will do that. He said, my kid, I probably got a kid up at that time anyway. I'm probably going to be up. You might as well just call me. Because something like this and his association with the Raiders and the league, it becomes a bigger story than had it not been a guy like that. And for that, I feel horrible for the family of their daughter as well, because they can't get away from it. It's just a horrible situation. And Chris, that speed, my jaw dropped when I saw that. I didn't even know that cars could like that aren't racing on a track could even get up that fast. Why do we make them able to do that?
It's a great question. I was listening to the Sports Grind yesterday with Calvin Casey and our good friend Mike Hardball Harge. And I heard a guy call into the Sports Grind when this story broke and said, why are people allowed to have a car that goes 156 miles an hour? Do we need to go 156? Most speed limits are 70-ish on highways, 75 sometimes. All right, give me 85, give me 90. But I mean, do civilian cars need to go 156? And then somebody else called in and maybe even Calvin or Harge said, well, a lot of people have those cars and they never get into trouble, and they love cars and they have those cars and they're responsible with those cars. And the same argument is made for gun ownership. When there's a gun tragedy, people say, oh my God, we got to do something. And then a lot of people point to responsible gun owners, and I get it. But my God, and you talked about going 156 on a track or apparently this was a relatively residential area as well. My God, just.
And in my neighborhood, I've had, especially with the time that I get up in the morning, I can hear someone going fast, and they're going fast because it's the time of day when typically there's not a lot of people on the road. It's just, I always think, oh my gosh, please don't hit anyone.
And you need to remember this, Shannon, on the way to work, and I do, and anybody who drives wrong way drivers every year in Texas, there are a number of, because people are drunk and they've been drinking and they've been going to gentlemen's clubs or bars all night, and then they go to a friend's and they drink, and at 4 a.m. and at 4:30 in the morning and at 5 a.m, wrong way drivers show up on highways and on thoroughfares. And you and I going to work, everybody going to work in the morning when it's still dark, we're playing our music, we're listening to sports radio. We're not expecting a car to be coming at us in the wrong direction on a highway, but it happens and it kills. So I mean, it's just, you need to be even more vigilant, the rest of us who are behaving properly at all times of the day and the night. But certainly police will tell you after 2 a.m. and after midnight, the number of horrible traffic accidents increase because there's a lot of drunk people out there driving.
Yeah. And I've been on my way to work and people are racing on the highway, multiple cars. And also one is usually clearly winning, so I don't know why we're still racing.
Yeah.
But it makes me obviously very nervous. And then I have those mornings where someone is driving extremely slow on the highway, and they're probably a little impaired. So they're thinking they're being overly cautious, and just please don't drink and drive. Please.
All right. Well, that was a tough subject, but again, a high five to Derek Carr for his humanity and for his friendship in being a friend at someone's worst possible moment when they have killed someone accidentally, and when they are being scorned by 99% of the rest of the people who know them. Coming up, we got so much to talk about. More on the Aaron Rodgers issue, more on the NFL. OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., his dad's video showing him wide open and Baker Mayfield not throwing him the ball. Well, the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield apparently are done with Odell Beckham Jr. We'll get into that. We'll talk Cowboys. We'll talk Spurs and NBA. We'll talk Longhorns, Roadrunners, and college football. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. 8 o'clock hour, James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Andy Everett of UTSA football. Getting no respect are those Roadrunners. Sports update at the top of the hour. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Good morning, Beth Settle. I see Beth Settle. Good morning, Neil Cole, Robert Browning, Leo Zambrano is in here. Jason Paniagua was talking about the Stones and some people there to see John F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy Jr. come onto the stage. Jason Paniagua wrote on YouTube, so the Facebook people didn't see it. The dead Kennedys opened for the Rolling Stones. Very funny. Very funny, sir. That was a very good line. That was Tonight Show worthy. Yeah, Sam Tobias says it comes down to responsibility and accountability. Every decision has an equal and opposite reaction. But I will say this, and obviously I'm not proud of this. How many of us haven't gotten way too drunk? You know, maybe not now, maybe when we were much younger, maybe in our 20s. How many of us drove a vehicle when we shouldn't have? If you can say not me, God love you. You've been a great citizen all your life, and I lift my cup of coffee to you. But, you know, but for the grace of God go I think many of us, if we're going to be honest, can say, especially when we were younger and inexperienced, we did some stupid things with alcohol. So, you know, should Henry Ruggs III be scorned and damned to hell forever? I mean, obviously now he's in big trouble. This causing death while driving intoxicated in Nevada carries a 2 to 20 year prison sentence. But by all accounts, he's got no prior criminal record. He's been a good guy until now. You know, it's hard to go there for a lot of people in this moment, but for Derek Carr to say, you know, this guy needs someone to love him right now. If you think about this from a humanity perspective, that's a very good point. Sam Tobias says, if I drink, I do it in the comfort of my own home. That's where we all got to get to. Either that or Uber. You know, now if I go to Fiesta or something, if I go to an event that I know I'm drinking, a lot of people do that now too. It's like they'll Uber to like Fiesta or an event, and it costs you a little bit more, but it could save lives. B, it could save you a ton of money if you get a DWI. I mean, you are financially screwed if you get a DWI. All right, heating up my coffee. I had some dreams. They were clouds in my coffee. Clouds in my coffee. You're so vain. You probably think the song is about you. Don't you? Don't you now? All right. Yeah, Dave Emilio Castanuela says, I know of people who have had multiple DUIs, like 2 or 3, and it's sad. Yet you would hope, certainly after one, that would be a wake-up call. Oh, you also say, my girlfriend doesn't drink, so she is my designated driver. That's good to have. That is good to have. Yeah, the worst part of this story is that the 23-year-old woman in the Henry Ruggs crash apparently witnesses said she was screaming in the vehicle and trapped in the vehicle, and they couldn't get her out, and the fire kept raging, and they had to eventually back away. And God, that is just horrible, horrific. So yeah, Jason Paniagua wrote that Henry Ruggs' girlfriend was also injured in the wreck. Prosecutors can add to his sentence depending on her injury, according to the press conference yesterday. Leo Zambrano says you need a breakdown of the UTEP minor football team and Saturday's big game. UTEP, I believe they're 6-1. I know they're undefeated at home. That could be a trap game for UTSA. You know, obviously Jeff Traylor will have them ready, but you know, for the fans, I think UTSA fans now, and I'm one of them, are starting to get a little cocky looking at the schedule, saying, UTEP. And just because UTEP has never you know, been a power. They've had a few wins over the years. Yeah, they're 6-2. Thank you. They're 6-2, 4-0 at home, and that's where the game will be at the Sun Bowl. And they're 3-1 in Conference USA. So if UTSA loses this, they would have one loss in Conference USA and a head-to-head loss to UTEP. So as far as like going to the Conference USA championship game, I mean, that's how quickly things could go south for them. Stephen Gutierrez bringing up, it is UTSA. Yep, you are correct. A lot of people get that wrong in the media, which is mind-numbing. Robert Browning says the U.S. has the worst drivers because they have the worst system of accountability. In Germany, you pay almost $6,000 and have to go to 6 months of driving school. When it's all said and done, people abide and obey the rules because the penalties are severe. When we lived there, I felt 10 times safer driving 110, 120 miles an hour on the Autobahn than I ever did in San Antonio, driving 60 to 70 on any highway. All good points. Welcome in. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. We are your source for sports information and the latest on strippers and monkeys. You hear it all right here. Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Isn't today the day Sark? Doesn't Sark have a press conference today of which we are expecting questions about strippers and monkeys? Isn't that supposed to happen today?
Yes, typically Thursdays are the day we get kind of a preview presser for the week's games. However, lately they've been Zoom, and those Zoom press conferences, even when they're in person, Texas tends to edit the press conferences after the fact
Ooh.
if there are questions that they're not fans of, whether they've already been reported by the reporters who asked them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there is a reporter to ask that question who it would be, or if Texas is going to say like, listen, joke but not a joke, no monkey business today.
Nice. No monkey business. It's interesting what you described, though. And I think it's a sign of the times. You know, COVID and the pandemic changed our lives across all kinds of businesses and companies and the way things are done. And as you mentioned, and most sports press conferences now are done on Zoom. I know as part of the Spurs media, I mean, obviously that's the way the Spurs do it. If you're going to talk to Pop or any of the Spurs players, they're made available for you, but they're made available on Zoom. And as you describe, I'm sure a lot of sports teams, college and pro, are doing what you're suggesting or what you're saying Texas is doing, which is, you know, Texas will get the Zoom. And if there's any question we don't like, we're going to edit that out of the Zoom and then we're going to release it. You know, which is a big difference from what was the pre-pandemic system where coach walks into a room and there's all the reporters and there's cameras running. However, a resourceful reporter could still be running, you know, video software on the live Zoom. So I'm sure someday there's probably going to be a situation where a coach is going to have a difficult question or a really embarrassing answer and a faux pas. I mean, James Franklin at Penn State, we talked about that last week when he got a lot of things wrong. When he was asked about whether or not he was going to leave Penn State, he really stumbled and fumbled and misspoke on a lot of things. But a resourceful reporter is probably going to be recording with their own video recording software in case something memorable happens.
Well, and this was a situation specifically with Zoom, because you're right. There's typically, and when you watch these back, if they have been edited, it's very easy to tell. And again, usually the report's already been made, whether or not it's in the video. You know, it just so happens that most people are going to find the video or audio from the actual school and not from that reporter, right? Because the school probably has larger following. So that's where most people will go and see or not see, whatever it may be. But last week during player interviews, it was, again, a Zoom call. And Josh Thompson was asked about playing at Baylor, and he kind of misunderstood the question. And because it was Zoom, there was no way for the reporter to follow up on his answer. So it came across as him saying that Baylor was the third, I don't remember if he meant third toughest or third worst place to play in the Big 12, but it came off a certain way. That's how it got reported. There was no way for them to get a follow-up question. Then Texas was like, oh, they misquoted him. Taylor Estes was great. She had the audio of the recording of the interview, and so she threw it out there and was like, this is what was actually said, but because of Zoom and the way it works, you have to like hit the little raise your hand button and you have to be called on, versus, you know, telling a coach, you know, or being able to see them in person and say, you know, give them the eye of like, I have a follow-up or whatever it may be to help clarify some of those answers. I think that's, you know, part of what's missing. I mean, and on one hand, it's great because you can do an interview or whatever from wherever you want.
Yeah.
But I think some of those human interactions and some of those moments that are so great about press conferences and things of that nature, you're missing, especially when it comes to needing a follow-up or a clarification on a specific answer before it becomes some story that it shouldn't be later on.
And as I hear you say that, Shannon, that is exactly what the Aaron Rodgers situation was. As we find out yesterday, we talked about this at length in the 6 o'clock hour, but as you bring it up, and it's just a phenomenon of the modern world and Zoom press conferences, but Aaron Rodgers, who tested positive for COVID this week and is out of the game this weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs, Jordan Love will be at quarterback. And that, I mean, so much intrigue there as well. But he was asked by a reporter, have you been vaccinated? And his answer was, yeah, I've been immunized, which, as we talked about last hour, Shannon, technically he didn't lie. Technically, the question was, have you been vaccinated? And in his mind, he goes, well, you know, when I was a kid, when I was 12, I got that I got that polio vaccine. So yeah, okay, yeah, I got the shingles vaccine. Yeah, I'm immunized. So
Yeah. And I would imagine any good reporter, had they been in person, would have followed up with
boom.
do you mean COVID-19 or what?
Yeah, somebody said,
something
was it
specific.
Pfizer, was it Moderna, or was it Johnson & Johnson? That would have been a good follow-up. Which one was it, Aaron? Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson? We're just curious.
Yeah. And again, that all goes to Zoom. And I think you sent me this story yesterday when it broke. And my first question to you was, I wonder what that's going to do to the line of this game.
Boom.
And I now have some information for you because it is quite a shift.
Okay.
Prior to the Chiefs outing against the Giants on Monday night, the Chiefs were favored in this game by 3 points.
Okay.
Following that game, it was the Packers who were favored by 1 point.
Wow.
Now we get this Aaron Rodgers news. On Wednesday, Chiefs now favored by 7.5.
Oh, my God.
That's how much. I mean, at the end of the day, we can talk about what Aaron Rodgers did or did not do wrong in the Packers organization and their handling of that. But at the end of the day, this man is not taking the field. And that is how much the line has swung back in favor of the Chiefs because Aaron Rodgers isn't available.
And I'm looking at the schedule, that game of which you describe a huge shift in the line when Aaron Rodgers will not play. Now it's Chiefs by 7.5, and Jordan Love, the source of all the controversy with Aaron Rodgers the last 2 seasons, ever since the Packers moved up to draft him at quarterback in the draft in the first round. What I love about, and again, Shannon, one of my first questions is, how does this affect me?
Yes.
Cowboys play at noon on Sunday on Fox. So we get to see the Cowboys at noon on Fox. So the 3:25 game on Fox, and I got to assume it's the marquee, even with Rodgers out because of Jordan Love, I got to believe this is still the marquee game of the day at Arrowhead Stadium, 3:25, Chiefs against the Packers. And as you said, you were talking in the 6 o'clock hour, that this game lost a little bit of its luster when the Chiefs are now 4-4 and floundering. To me, in a weird way, in the same way people love to watch the Cowboys when they're hurting, just the fact that the Chiefs are 4-4 is mind-blowing. And to me, that makes them must-see TV. And the fact that the Packers, after getting blown out on opening day against the Saints in a game that had to be played in Jacksonville, the Packers have won 7 in a row. So even if it was Rodgers versus Mahomes, I would still find it very intriguing. But now Jordan Love, one of 3 things is going to happen. He's either going to play average and most of us are going to go meh, or he's going to play great and everybody's going to say, Aaron Rodgers, and hey, Packers, you guys got yourself a quarterback, or he's going to play god awful and give Aaron Rodgers even more leverage and ammunition. And the belief will be the Packers made a huge mistake in going for Jordan Love a couple of years ago in the draft.
Right. The storyline of this entire game has completely shifted. I mean, beginning of the season, you're thinking this could be a showdown of a potential Super Bowl. This is the State Farm. Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes, 2 elite guys, probably in the race for MVP, both coming off of fantastic seasons. You have the drama of one quarterback is the shining star there for years to come. Aaron Rodgers' future with that team in doubt. These teams coming in, you probably look at their schedules and think, okay, maybe they're a 1, maybe a 2-loss team. Instead, you have Kansas City on a make or break game of, okay, if they're able to win this game, maybe they're not down and out as much as we think they are at 4-4. And now you have Jordan Love running at the helm for the Packers, and it's, okay, is this his shot to prove that he's the future of this team and worthy of that draft pick and worthy of the Packers organization backing him up? Because again, Aaron Rodgers, depending on how he tests throughout the next couple of days, he may miss 2 games.
Yes,
because of this.
Apparently, because he wasn't vaccinated, there's a mandatory 10-day quarantine via the NFL's protocols. So even if he, and I think that kicks in once he tests negative. So the clock doesn't start. My understanding is until he tests negative, he's got to go another 10 days.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Well, and Shannon, you and I talk about we want the Cowboys, because we're Cowboys fans,
Yes.
to get the number one, record in the NFC so that they can have a first-round bye in home field. Think about Aaron Rodgers now. If he's out for this Kansas City game, and if the Packers could have beaten Kansas City with Aaron Rodgers, and if they don't with Jordan Love, and then maybe he's out the next game for the Green Bay Packers, what if they lose one or two of those games, and we believe that they could have won those games, and because of that, the Packers will fall in the standings behind the Cowboys or the Arizona Cardinals or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You could lose playoff positioning. You could lose home games in the playoffs. You could significantly damage your team's chances in the playoffs. Yeah. If I'm a Packers fan, I'm saying, thank you so much, Aaron Rodgers, for being a diva, for being evasive, for behaving badly, and for costing your team.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the outrage kind of stems from, and that he did want to be the guy to come back and, prove that he was worthy. He should be the man in charge. He's going to lead this team to victory week in and week out and give you a really great shot at making a great postseason run. And I think people, because of how he answered that question earlier on, assumed he was vaccinated, and then to find out he isn't vaccinated, which means because now he has COVID, he has to go through the protocols as an unvaccinated player. So he's now risking 2 games of which he might miss to be out. And with it as tight as it is at the top of the NFC, they can't afford to, at this point, drop 1 game, and certainly not 2.
Let's bring the boss man in here, and we appreciate his doing the heavy lifting all morning. Brian Gann, how you feeling about all this?
Question is, do we know if he had COVID before?
That's a great question.
Because if he had COVID before, maybe he thought he'd built up immunity, so he thought he was answering it correctly.
Wow.
And I've been immunized. In other words, I was immunized because I got COVID.
That's a tremendous question.
Well, maybe a stretch, but are they reporting because they're not doing reporting of everybody that gets COVID.
Right.
We're off season.
Yes.
He was doing the whole jungle thing in Hawaii or wherever he was.
Which also made people mad, because Hawaii has been saying, please do not vacation here. We are trying to deal with our COVID situation. We don't need other people bringing it in. And I think you're supposed to also quarantine in Hawaii and for him to not be vaccinated.
And we hear a lot of that. Mike Taylor, who lives in Hawaii,
right.
He's been on his show, which is 4 to 7 in the afternoon.
That's a great
He's
point.
been talking about that a lot.
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past him if he did already have COVID at some point. I mean, given the way that he has kind of eluded him from all of these questions and whatnot, that maybe he thought, I've already had it, so I don't need the shot.
Yeah, it obviously doesn't improve the situation, but maybe it means that he thought in his mind he was telling the truth at the time.
Wow. I'm going to try to track that down this morning and today as to whether or not there's any reporting that Aaron Rodgers may have already had COVID earlier throughout the pandemic. Right now, it is 7:20. We do this all day long into the night from 6:20 until 9:20. Every hour on the 20s, you get a shot at $1,000. You're going to get a keyword right now and a place to text it. It's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. It goes like this.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword WIN to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's WIN to 200-200.
Win is the keyword, and we want you to win. Somebody wins the money. We want it to be you. So you are welcome to join that. You got a chance to win not only now, but again, throughout the day from 6:20 to 9:20 on the 20s, we give you the opportunity. Shannon, we're getting a phone call right now, and I haven't given the phone number out enough this morning, and we'll work on that. 800-707-9760. You are always welcome to join us, and Michael is doing that right now. Michael, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for taking my call, but I listen to y'all every morning, and
thank you.
Your takes are really funny, so I enjoy you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Michael.
You're welcome. I wanted to talk about Aaron Rodgers real quickly because I got a couple of questions. Is the NFL randomly testing folks, the players? Because if you think about it, he tested positive, and usually it takes a while to show up positive. And I know this because I tested 3 times in July, and then suddenly showed up positive. So was he showing symptoms? Because you don't take a test randomly just to take a test randomly. And if he was showing symptoms, remember, he went to that Halloween party. That shows more selfishness. I mean, you just don't take a test. Do you know the situation about the NFL and testing protocols?
My understanding, Michael, is that players are tested regularly and not necessarily randomly. If the team knows you have chosen not to get the vaccine, you have more regular tests. I think something like 3 times during the week. I don't have the specifics in front of me, but I do know if the league and the team knows you did not get vaccinated by choice, you are obviously, and it makes sense, you're tested more than the vaccinated players. But my understanding, Michael, as well, is that even vaccinated players, I think I've heard once per week. It's a great question. We'll have to look it up, but I don't think it's random. I think it's regular.
Yeah, if you are vaccinated, you get tested once a week, and you are able to say, hey, I want to be tested more if you so choose. If you're unvaccinated, you have to be tested every day, even on off days, so that they know the next day coming into the facility that you previously tested negative.
All right. Well, thank you. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Michael, thank you for the call. Thanks for listening to us every morning. We love hearing that, and we appreciate your taking the time to hang out with us every morning. It just, Shannon, and I heard somebody say this yesterday, and it makes total sense for Aaron Rodgers, that this is all of it. This is on brand for Aaron Rodgers. He's a diva. He lives by his own rules. Even the way he answered that question, Aaron, are you vaccinated? Yeah, I'm immunized. I mean, just all of it. And even if indeed he knew he wasn't vaccinated, as Michael says, showing up at a Halloween party without a mask, flying with the team, meeting with the team on the road.
Hosting Jeopardy.
Yeah. And again, and as you pointed, and we didn't bring this up yet, but you brought up that his significant other, are they married yet? I don't keep track on my matrimony.
Who knows? Maybe.
But apparently his significant other is involved in alternate therapies such as clay and but I had heard as well yesterday, Aaron Rodgers petitioned the NFL to use an alternative immunization for COVID-19. And of course, none of that is approved by the FDA, and there's no real science to back it. So the NFL said, no, you need to either, if you're going to be vaccinated, we recognize the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, or the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So Aaron even apparently did take the step to ask the NFL, and I'm assuming maybe it's what his wife was doing or another doctor who had an alternative therapy, and the NFL said, no, that's not recognized, so we don't recognize it.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like, we're not blaming Shailene because all these actions are Aaron Rodgers' decisions. My question now is, does State Farm have medical coverage, and do they cover COVID-19 if you're unvaccinated?
That's funny. That's a great question. And you also, I also wonder, Shannon, because again, I kind of have liked Aaron Rodgers more ever since the Jordan Love thing happened, when the Packers moved up to get a quarterback and didn't even call him, didn't even give him the courtesy of a phone call saying, hey, we're doing this for the future. You're good now, but we want a good insurance policy. I wonder if there's going to be a backlash against Aaron Rodgers. Are more and more people going to find his behavior irresponsible? And if that's the case, you bring up the State Farm coverage. Does that affect his likability, and does that affect his status with the State Farm gig? I wonder.
Yeah, I'm now like running through commercials in my head that are featuring athletes, and if any of them pop out as guys who have or have not been, specifically not been vaccinated, I really can't think of any. It's a hard place for State Farm, I think, because the second they drop him, it becomes a kind of a political thing, and I think they want to stay out of that.
Yeah.
So maybe
a certain
they just
percentage of the population, if they did that, there would be a backlash against State Farm.
Right.
Yes.
And the thing is, like, those commercials were filmed way back in the summer. It's not like they're going to refilm anything anytime soon unless they need a Super Bowl something or other, and that's months away. So I think for now they just kind of no comment. You know, that's just where they need to go with that.
We'll keep an eye on I think this story could balloon a little bit today. We'll keep an eye on the Aaron Rodgers story this day and all week, headed into this weekend's game between the Chiefs and the Packers. Coming up, Shannon's salty shakedown. Will it involve any pole assassins or monkeys? We have no idea, but we're about to find out. Coming up as well, this day in sports history and sports birthdays. There's a big sports birthday involving a friend of the show. We'll let you know who's having a big sport and at least one. Yeah, a big Dallas Cowboys birthday today. We'll let you know who that is. And in fact, I'll give you a hint. He wears or wore number 88 for the Cowboys. One of the 88s for the Cowboys is having a birthday today. Do you know who it is? We'll tell you who it is coming up. Big 8 o'clock hour, James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll talk Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk NFL. We'll talk college football with him. Speaking of college football, Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA football and UTSA athletics, going to join us after 8:30. The boss man, Brian Gann, doing the heavy lifting this morning. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Bernard Trefan with some State Farm info. Same with Ralph Balderas. Dean Stone says Aaron Rodgers just ruined a potentially good game this weekend. See, yeah, and I would agree. It would be a better game with Aaron Rodgers. I still think there's a lot of intrigue. The whole Jordan Love thing. Well, the Packers are a really good football team. Oh, it was great. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, that was more than the vaccine. Yeah. So it wouldn't make the vaccine. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a great point. So he maybe was thinking in his. Yeah. Yeah. And it would be interesting if now that this is becoming. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from him. I wonder if he's going to say, especially if that were the case, if he would say, "Hey, man, I had it, so he still did all the stuff wrong." Yeah. 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 I know how he's right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's a great story. All right. So anyway, back to Dean. I still think it's a very intriguing game because Packers still very good at 7-1. Obviously, they're much better with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we can even say that sight unseen with Jordan Love. But, Jordan Love has been a big story in Packerland and in the NFL. And now we get to see him in a hostile environment against a very, very good football team. But I even heard somebody yesterday, maybe Dan Patrick, say that Chiefs defense isn't that good. So Jordan Love has a chance to carve up that Chiefs defense. So another thought, though, Aaron Rodgers, that quarterback room is not very big. What if Jordan Love tests positive because he's been hanging out with Aaron Rodgers in the quarterback room? That could be a thing. Okay, coming up. There's our show today. It's a Throwback Thursday. James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Middle left. Going to join us just after 8 o'clock. Middle right is Andy Everett. Going to join us at 8:30. There's Aaron Rodgers, upper right. Of course, young Shannon Sweeney on a Throwback Thursday. Upper center. Me, upper left. We were the Woodlawn Warriors at the Northwest YMCA. Wearing a Randy Moss Vikings jersey like 20 years before Randy Moss ever played. Lower left, Henry Ruggs III. Center, middle, Odell Beckham Jr. And, of course, lower right, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. We, on Twitter and social media, we put out a little matrix photo like that shows you what the show's going to be that day. Let's see. Do I have? There it is. And coming up at 8 o'clock, this guy, James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm going to figure out, I'm kind of new to this StreamYard software. So I'm going to eventually figure out when we have somebody on the phone to be able to like have me over here or on one side and have Shannon on the other side. And then in the middle, have the person we're talking to. That would make a lot more sense. So we'll work on that. But yeah, James Allen going to join us at 8:10. Hollywood Squares, tic-tac-toe. That's a lot of what it looks like. But we need anybody who knows the Hollywood Squares. You got to be old like me to get this reference. But the middle Hollywood Square, Paul Lynde. Any of you remember Paul Lynde in the center square on Hollywood Squares was hilarious. He made that show. He was tremendous. Dean Stone remembers Paul Lynde. He was, I know he was on Bewitched. He was a warlock on Bewitched. But you bring up a great question. Let me see if I can Google him real quick. Lynde, American comedian, born in 1926 in Mount Vernon, Ohio. He died in 1982. And let me see some credits. Bewitched, the movie Bye Bye Birdie, Hollywood Squares. Those are his notables on Wikipedia. He went to Northwestern University. I never knew that. He was Uncle Arthur on Bewitched. He was the befuddled father, Harry McAfee, in Bye Bye Birdie, of which Anne Margaret was in there. He voiced animated characters for 5 Hanna-Barbera productions. I never knew that. He was in The Flying Nun, Gidget, I Dream of Jeannie, F Troop as a character actor, The Ed Sullivan Show, The Dean Martin Show, The Munsters. He was very funny. He was a funny guy. And, whenever they would go to him on the Hollywood Squares, they ask a question. And, with him, it would always be some kind of sexual innuendo, which was very funny. And, it was just harder to say these things in the 1970s on television. So when you said something kind of taboo or forbidden, it was even a little funnier. Here we come.
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter @Chris Duel and @Shannon B. Sweeney.
Absolutely. We love getting your tweets. Not only can you tweet us at those personal Twitter accounts, but don't forget the two radio stations from which this show originates. AM 1300 The Zone out of Austin on Twitter. Same name at AM 1300 The Zone. And of course, at Ticket 760 in San Antonio. Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Big 8 o'clock hour coming at you. Our good friend, James Allen, board member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Lots to talk about with him. Of course, the big headline, Aaron Rodgers, who someday, guaranteed, will be making a speech when he is enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. James Allen will be there in Canton, Ohio, watching him. But has Aaron Rodgers been behaving badly lately? He is now out of the game against the Chiefs with COVID. So we'll talk Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk NFL, college football as well with James Allen just after 8 o'clock. Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA athletics. Is he bummed? Is he angry that UTSA has been completely left out of the top 25 of the college football playoff rankings? I went to, Shannon, I went to look up because I wanted to see UTEP's record. So I went to the ESPN website to look at that game, which is on Saturday night. So I clicked on top 25 and I scrolled down and there's no UTSA in the top 20 because they're using the college football playoff rankings now. If you go to ESPN's website and go look top 25 games, you will not find UTSA versus UTEP. And that kind of ticks me off. I don't know how angry Andy Everett's going to be, Shannon, but it kind of ticks me off as a fan of that program. And then you and I, friends of UTSA head football coach Jeff Traylor, who joins us every Monday at 8:35.
Yeah. And we'll cover a little bit of that on the Salty Shakedown today, sir.
Ooh, some more UTSA Roadrunner intrigue coming up in seconds on the Salty Shakedown. But first, how about some sports birthdays, including a friend of the show having a sports birthday? But first, this day in sports history. On this day in 1987, November 4th, 1987, the NBA announces not one, not two, not three, but 4 new franchises. They're going to put them in Charlotte and Miami and in Minneapolis and Orlando. That was some big expansion for the NBA in 1987. Charlotte and Miami came online in 1988. Minneapolis, of course, the Timberwolves, and Orlando came on board in 1989. On this day in 2001, American tennis star Serena Williams won the WTA Tour Championship in Munich, Germany, after Lindsay Davenport had to default in the final due to a knee injury. It was Serena Williams' first season-ending title. There would be many, many more in the next 20 years. On this day in 2001, actually this day, November 4th, good for the New York Yankees. I don't know that I love that, but in 2001 on this day, the New York Yankees, actually no, Arizona beat the New York Yankees in the World Series on this day in 2001, but it was good for the Yankees. In 2009, the Yankees beat the Philadelphia Phillies 7-3 in Game 6 at Yankee Stadium. That was the Bronx Bombers' 27th title. Hideki Matsui was the outfielder, was your MVP that day. That's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1975, perennial All-Pro offensive tackle Orlando Pace was born. St. Louis Rams, Orlando Pace, won a Super Bowl with them under Dick Vermeil. Orlando Pace, born in 1975 in Sandusky, Ohio. Shannon, our friend from the Sports Grind, Jonas Clark, I know he's from Sandusky, Ohio, because he reminded me of that several times. And I always wondered if Jerry Sandusky, the god-awful, shamed Penn State assistant coach, is Jerry Sandusky from Sandusky, Ohio? No. Maybe you want to change that name, Sandusky, Ohio. I'm just saying. Born on this day in 1982, American football return star Devin Hester, Chicago Bears, was born in Riviera Beach, Florida on this day in 1982. Shannon, born on this day in 1988, was a Dallas Cowboy who would wear number 88. Des Bryant was born in Galveston County, Texas.
Okay.
Des Bryant didn't exactly live up to the greatness that I think he could have with number 88.
Yeah.
I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be a little better. Obviously, Michael Irvin and Drew Pearson in the Hall of Fame. They're a lot better than Des Bryant. Finally, Shannon, I wish he were on the show today like he was yesterday. Born on this day in 1958, the longtime voice of the Texas Longhorns, now the 21-season voice of the San Antonio Spurs, a great guy, a tremendous broadcaster. The great Bill Schoening is having a birthday. Happy birthday, Bill Schoening, today.
Happy birthday, Bill.
Whoa!
Now, you're helping me try and get tickets to this Mavs-Spurs game, which is 2 weeks from today.
Yes.
And you also mentioned that I could perhaps, maybe if he's not too incredibly busy, meet Bill at said game.
You
and I
must.
might be looking forward to that more at this point.
2 weeks from today.
Should I get the opportunity to attend?
Well,
Happy birthday, Bill.
Happy birthday, Bill. And 2 weeks from today, say hello to Shannon as she approaches your broadcast position.
Yeah. Your birthday gift from me to you is you to say hi to me.
And you got to get a photo at that point, Shannon. We need
Obviously.
photographic evidence.
Got to do it for the gram.
And hopefully Bill won't big time you and say,
Yeah, I
and
don't
you
know her.
are.
He's like, I've
And
never seen her in
you
my life.
are-
Talked to her a few times, but never seen her. Don't know who she
Yeah.
is.
Bill would never do that. He's such a great guy. Happy birthday, Bill Schoening. Those are your sports birthdays and your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, pole assassins, and monkeys, it is now time for your salty shakedown.
All right, let's keep it with basketball as we roll in here to today's Salty Shakedown. This discussion has been going on since the beginning of the NBA season and most recently heated up earlier this week when we got a particular comment from one Charles Barkley on the TNT broadcast with his buddy Shaq. Zion Williamson has been through it since he's been in the league. He really hasn't played a whole lot because he's been injured. He recently had foot surgery. And he's always been a big guy. I mean, that he has a physical presence that is next to unmatched. He came into the league at 284 pounds. But right now, he's hovering around 317, Chris. And people have taken notice. And so then we get this comment earlier in the week from one Charles Barkley. Maybe not. Charles Barkley said that he looked like he and Shaq had a baby.
Ooh.
As we know, Charles and Shaq, their diets went away, their routine workouts went away when they retired, and they got a little plump, and that's fine. You do that in retirement. That you earned it.
Oh, okay, we here it is.
Chuck, you had a visceral reaction.
It's like me and Shaq had a baby. They gonna do it. I'm so like, I quit. I gotta get back on, man. What do it look like, Chuck? Man, you had a baby.
Everyone,
You eat good in New Orleans.
everyone is poking fun at one Zion. You hear at the end there, he's eating good in New Orleans.
Oh.
Chris, it is kind of funny, right? In that he is a professional athlete and he has been dealing with that foot injury, which means it's a little harder to do a lot of conditioning, a lot of normal workouts he might do. And he is in New Orleans where there's a lot of great food. But for a guy who's the face of a franchise, I feel like he has to have it within himself to be disciplined. And then also I put a lot of blame on the franchise because he is their franchise player.
Yeah.
Because they are wanting to keep him and not lose him to a larger market, to say, hey, man, you got to do it for you and for this team to be in shape. So that way, when you are healed from this foot injury, you are back and healthy in all aspects and ready to play throughout the game, because you're gonna get worn out. I mean, have you seen him, Chris?
I have seen some photos lately, and he's big. Yes, and I've seen before and after from last year versus this year. I mean, he is significantly bigger. But as you say, Shannon, if you're New Orleans, you don't want to lose him. And a lot of people are saying, hey, Anthony Davis left New Orleans, went to LA. So you got to be, if you're telling him to lose weight, you got to be very, very delicate with how you express that to him.
I mean, but at the same time, you got to think that he's maybe hurting himself a little bit in the trade prospect, and that who wants to deal with that if he proves that he's not disciplined enough to hold off weight or to lose the weight that he's gained since said surgery. So something to keep an eye on. I mean, last year, James Harden started the season looking a little bigger in that Houston uniform. And then all of a sudden he goes to the Nets and he looks quite a bit better. And we kind of had that again over the summer where he was photographed at like a beach bar during the playoffs after they had been knocked out. But he seems to be doing all right this season as far as his time on play. So who knows? Maybe this is all part of Zion's tactic. Maybe he took a page out of one James Harden's book of how he got out of Houston and is trying to get out of New Orleans, and by saying, look, I just can't live here. The food is too good. I can't keep myself away from it. All right, moving on to the football world. Chris, a lot of college coaches have been leaving or have been let go. And we're really only mid-season. It's been a strange one this year. As we talked about yesterday, a guy like Clay Helton leaves one job. He gets a new job while the season is still going on. TCU made the announcement on Sunday evening that they would be parting ways immediately with longtime coach Gary Patterson. That was a shock to the nation. So they are already on the coaching search. And a name has popped up as a front runner. One, Kellen Moore, the OC for the Dallas Cowboys, who's doing really well with the Dallas Cowboys. Sir, I find this interesting because, as we know, in the offseason, Kellen Moore interviewed for the Eagles head coaching job, and he also interviewed for the Boise State head coaching job, for which we are believed he was actually offered the job. It was his alma mater. He then signs an extension with the Cowboys and says, I have stopped pursuing the Boise State head coaching job. So I think if he doesn't want to go back to his alma mater, why would he go to TCU?
I totally agree.
Especially when people say that he is in line for the throne of the Dallas Cowboys head coaching position, should it become available in the near future. So right off the top, initial thoughts, do you think he considers and or accepts a TCU head coaching gig should it be officially offered to him?
I think this is disinformation being put out by TCU to try to make their job look better. Kellen Moore is not only being talked about as maybe the heir apparent to be the next Dallas Cowboys head coach, but a lot of people, we heard Romo say this year during one of the telecasts, he will be a head coach in the NFL somewhere next year. Why, of all places, why would you want to go to TCU? Obviously, if it were an LSU, if it were one of the top 10 schools, if it were Bama or Ohio State or Texas or even USC, although I think USC is losing its luster. I'm an alum, so I can say that. No. Why, if you were Kellen Moore, why would you do this? You wouldn't do this. I think it's TCU trying to make their job sound better to some other coach who might later want to take it.
Well, and on top of the Kellen Moore interest, they reportedly also have interest in one Deion Sanders. And he's very new to the coaching world. So I don't really get that. And the level he's coaching at is not really comparable to a Big 12 and a TCU program that will look to try and lead the Big 12 into their next lifetime after Oklahoma and Texas lead. But I guess I get why they're throwing the name out there because as far as recruiting, TCU, obviously being in Texas, has a hard time competing with the Texas A&Ms and the Texas and the Baylors and the Texas and even the neighboring states for recruits. And I guess if you have a guy like Deion Sanders as part of your coaching staff, that may entice a lot of kids to at least check the school out. But other than that, I don't see either of these names being the ultimate head coach at the end of the day. Just thought it was an interesting story, especially because as Cowboys fans, we are desperately trying to hold on to Kellen Moore at this point. All right, Chris, I previewed it. We're going to talk a little UTSA here. Yesterday during the show, we talked a lot about the top 25, most notably how UTSA was absent. During one of the breaks yesterday, I typed up my top 25 really quickly and just posted it. A lot of people on Facebook then, because I posted it to our station socials, didn't care about my list, but they cared about the couple of misspellings because I was on my iPhone. I did it quickly. I did not do a spell check. Whatever. You can understand what I meant if I messed up a typo here or there, but that's all people really went at. One thing I did not mistype was UTSA. A lot of people, however, in the discussion of UTSA being undefeated and not being included in the college football playoffs top 25, have been talking about them and have been writing them up as USTA, which for people who aren't aware, that stands for the U.S. Tennis Association. Now, we talk to Coach Jeff Traylor each and every week. He always says, don't eat the cheese. But I feel like maybe he took a little nibble this week because he had some fun with this USTA thing. If you go check out his Twitter, he's got some fantastic photo edits of tennis players where I don't know if he did it. We need to ask about his photo editing skills the next time we talk to him because he has put his football players' faces onto these tennis players. And his first tweet that I thought maybe he's nibbling the cheese a little bit says, your unranked UTSA, now I'm confusing myself, UTSA football will be traveling to UTEP this weekend. Control what we can control. Triangle will travel on it. Again, it's all of his players' heads on tennis players. They're holding a USTA flag. I found it interesting that he mentioned the unranked football team that he now has, from 16 to now unranked with that college football playoff ranking. He went on to post some other single players asking if they should be their singles or doubles captains. It's great photo editing. But Chris, do you think he's eating the cheese a little bit here now that they go from being ranked to unranked so quickly just because we're at a different poll now?
No, I just think he's brilliant. I think he knows his players are social media savvy. I think he's using it as motivation. He's like saying, hey, the other two polls ranked us significantly, and now now we're unranked. Especially, and UTEP is 6-2 and 4-0 at home at the Sun Bowl. I think bulletin board material. I think he is just brilliantly and creatively firing up his troops.
Yeah, I love it. I love the photo editing skills. I really hope that's him that did that, and that he's just sitting at home doing that. Just like the image of that, and also a fantastic point of obviously USTA is not in the top 25. Obviously, right. I think that's a little shot at all of that as well. There it is, today's Salty Shakedown.
Outstanding Salty Shakedown as well. No monkeys required on that Salty Shakedown. It was just tremendous on its own right. Coming up, a spectacular 8 o'clock hour. So much we still have to get to because there's so much going on in the world of sports. James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll talk Aaron Rodgers. How tarnished is his facade now, which will soon be a bronze bust in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that, NFL, college football. Andy Everett on the whole UTSA saga going to join us just after 8:30. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Your chance at $1,000 coming up at 8:20. Sports update at the top of the hour with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. All right. I'm texting James Allen. All right, I am going to freshen up my coffee. And then I will be right back. Make sure I get this to James Allen. All right. Let's see. Okay. I will come back and check your comments here in a sec. When I get right back. Give you some Bryn Forbes. Thanks for being with us, Bryn Forbes. And thank you, unlike Aaron Rodgers, thank you for masking. That is appreciated. Coffee time. I don't get a nap today. I got like a doctor appointment follow-up. It's routine. But I don't, that's at 11:30. So that means I don't get a nap. So I'll be extra cranky. Be right back. So I need the coffee. All right. Thank you, Bryn Forbes. Thanks for being here. And thank you for wearing a mask. Unlike Aaron Rodgers. Woo! Sam Ellinger is falling down. We can't have that. Louisa, that is a great question. Louisa asks, why does the grind have Sam Freese and Jonas, and you can't even get one technician permanently? Great question. Well, the grind is a different show. The grind is paid programming. It's a different setup. So the grind itself as a program can pay Jonas as its producer. We don't have the budget the grind does, apparently. So now Sam is the technician of note in the afternoon. So that's why they have Sam. So Jonas is not an employee of iHeartRadio. Jonas, he used to be. Jonas is an employee of the Sports Grind. And it's weird, but it is what it is. Now, if the grind was there or not, and if Jonas was there or not, Sam Freese would be there to be the engineer in the afternoon. So part of it is it's a staffing issue like everything else, and they're hiring 2 new people, one of whom is named Jeremy, but Jeremy Fouts went off and got another job, so we lost him. It's just been during the pandemic, and this is no longer the case, but during the pandemic, there was a hiring freeze, I believe. That's no longer the case. So now they are hiring a couple of people. So, maybe we'll have somebody. We've got Dave Ayler, obviously works here. And when there's a shortage down the hall at WOAI, he works down there. So it's just the kooky radio world. You've got airlines having to cancel flights for staffing issues. Luckily, they're hiring 2 new people, so hopefully that will benefit us. Foamfoot 420 is saying, it's cold days like today. I need a cuddle buddy. If anybody wants to apply to be Foamfoot 420's cuddle buddy, you can apply at foamfoot420.com. I don't think that's a website, but it might be. I'm sure you can apply somewhere. Yeah, John Williams, you're not going to hear Christmas music on this show until Christmas. All right, we've got James Allen coming up in this segment. Thank you.
Actually, Frank told me there for a second when I tried to play the Barkley thing.
Yeah.
It was like half the stuff froze, and it was nuts. Sorry.
That's okay. It's so amazing. I mean, the more high technology we get, the more crazy little things like that can happen.
We've got an issue on OAI where just randomly the third pot turns off when it's in use.
Oh no!
So it'll fire a commercial, and in the middle of the commercial, it just turns off.
Wow.
They're trying to narrow it down, but they can't find it.
Robert, it is the boss today who.
I'll call him in about 5.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's the boss today who runs the news operations. He oversees the news for iHeartRadio in like 5 states. Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. I think maybe even Mississippi. But he's got huge responsibilities. And again, part of that is. There's a shortage at Soundscape Stylist, so he does this while multitasking.
Now, Chris Duel.
It is a football Thursday. Thank you, Lord, and praise Tom Landry. Not the greatest NFL football game ever tonight, but hey, it's NFL football. It's Colts versus Jets. That to me is a rematch of Super Bowl III. Maybe Joe Namath will show up. And if Joe Namath shows up, maybe Susie Colbert will show up. Maybe Susie Colbert had nothing to do with Super Bowl III, but Joe Namath did. As I recall, Shannon, because I am 60s and 70s football Rain Man, the New York Jets beat the Baltimore Colts 16-7 in Super Bowl III at the Orange Bowl in Miami. Colts were a huge favorite. It was the NFL versus the AFL at the time. The AFL had never beaten the NFL. And in Miami, the week leading up to the Super Bowl, famously, Joe Namath guaranteed a victory. And the media said, are you out of your mind? The Colts are going to kill you. But the Jets win 16-7. And Joe Namath runs off the field at the Orange Bowl in Miami, waving his number one. We're number one. We're number one. And that footage would live forever. And tonight, those two teams go at it again, Shannon. Woo!
Dare I say it, I don't think we'll get as an exciting of a game matchup.
So let's see. That was Joe Namath versus Earl Morrall. And actually, it was Earl Morrall and Johnny Unitas also played for the Colts in that game. So tonight, it's Carson Wentz versus, is that rookie quarterback back? No, it's that guy named White. I don't even Mike White.
Because I don't think Flacco's ready yet.
Right. Wow. And this backup quarterback who came in for the Jets last week wound up being a madman, as I recall.
Now, you and I are we're selfish people, and so we always look to find a way of how games can benefit us.
Exactly.
And by us, I mean the Cowboys.
Yes.
Is there anything because the only thing that I can connect is Carson Wentz, former Eagle, so I have to go for the Jets in this one. That's all I have. Because people still have the argument that Carson was better than Dak, and no, he wasn't.
Nobody says that today, though, do they? I mean, that was a big argument.
So I still have that to lean on. But other than that, I find nothing in this game.
Yeah, and now that he's not an Eagle, and yes, I had to hate Carson Wentz when he was an Eagle, and yes, I did hate the people who said Carson Wentz was better than Dak. But now that he was kind of blown. When you look at what happened to him in Philadelphia, he gets hurt. Nick Foles leads the Eagles to a Super Bowl win. They put a statue to Nick Foles there. And ever since then in Philly, Carson Wentz was never the same. And ultimately they give up on him. I almost want to see him successful at Indy. Now I feel sorry for him. I feel bad for him now. And, he went to kind of a small college. So I'm sure he's got a chip on his shoulder. So you don't seem to be feeling that.
I want to see Sam play, and for Sam to play, Carson has to not play well.
Is Sam number 2 on the depth chart right now? I wonder.
I think he is.
So if there's a reason to watch tonight, if Carson Wentz gets knocked out, and we know he has been injury prone, Sam Ehlinger, the rookie out of Texas. And I'm looking at their depth chart. There's no third quarterback on the depth chart that I'm looking at. It's Carson Wentz, and number 2 is Sam Ehlinger. And after that, good luck. So, and I still have to find out. I need to go to the New York Jets, Jets, Jets depth chart. And what was that guy's name? Mike White? Who was that?
Yeah.
Who's that quarterback for the Jets?
And someone said on our video feed that he lost to Cooper Rush for the Cowboys backup gig 2 years ago, which that name is sounding familiar now.
Really?
In a Cowboy uniform.
That guy was a Cowboy?
Yeah. But I don't, this isn't going to be some Gardner Minshew
Mike White.
moment.
Yeah. Zach Wilson is out. Mike White will be the Jets quarterback tonight. Mike White.
What a great game.
But it's Shannon, and this again, and I credit Paul Alexander, who we have on Fridays, for reminding us. Yeah, it's NFL football. When it is off season, you're going to be starving for NFL football. So it's like you've just been eating and you just had a burger and some fries, and somebody puts the greatest filet mignon from the greatest steakhouse ever in front of you, and you go, "No, I'm not hungry. I don't think I'll be having that baked potato and that filet and that chocolate mousse for dessert. I just had a burger and fries." But it's a great meal. It's NFL football, but you're not,
If I ever needed a Manning cast, It would be
True.
tonight.
And that's why we need more Manning cast. They need to develop, A, they need to flex Thursday night games, and B, they need to like a secondary Manning cast.
Like Manning cast should not be an ESPN property, but an NFL property.
Ooh,
They can put them on any game they want.
I like the way you think. Somebody else we like the way he thinks as well is James Allen, a board member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And one of our few guests, I think our only guest who has his official walk-up music. And there it is, James Allen. How are you doing on this Thursday morning, James?
I'm doing great. I love this weather, and I'm so impressed that the big boss, Brian Gann, actually calls people on the phone. So shout out to Brian for calling me on the phone. So I'm doing wonderful.
Yeah. It's not like Brian is busy or anything. It's not like he has other, like 27 other responsibilities, radio stations across the country. So James, I think the big story in the NFL right now, and you're a great guy to talk about this because you see how the NFL works on multiple levels. You have a front row seat to a lot of what happens in the NFL, including the Pro Football Hall of Fame, on which you are seated as a board member. But one day soon, James, you are going to be in Canton, Ohio, wearing your official jacket as a board member, and Aaron Rodgers is going to get a gold jacket. That's a guarantee. But right now, Aaron Rodgers is in the news on multiple fronts. Number one, he's tested positive for COVID. And number two, people are going back to a press conference where he said, yeah, I'm immunized. And now the NFL is saying, oh, no, you're not. Your status is not vaccinated. How do you feel about this big Aaron Rodgers story?
Well, there's a lot of different angles. I guess to sum it up, you are the voluntarily or involuntary leader of the team. You're the spokesman of the team. You're the face of the team. Do you want to be a Tom Brady? Do you want to be a Peyton Manning? If you want to be Art, as y'all point out, Joe Namath, you are looked towards for the motivation. You are looked for that person. I'm sure they're going to come out, and Aaron's people are going to come out and say, well, he said immunized, and that didn't, technical term. However, as you know, the NFL and the NFL Players Association have very detailed rules that if you are not vaccinated, without getting into semantics of which words you use, you have to, you have to wear a mask, you have to do all these things, and he hasn't been doing any of that stuff. So, Aaron's personality is probably not leaning towards this, where you would see this of Peyton Manning or everything else. You just come out and say, listen, I screwed up. I'm sorry, everything else. I hope that he doesn't hide behind the technical term and stuff like that, because it's really going to be, especially, the Packers are doing great. I mean, they're number one in their division, far and away are going to win the North. And this is kind of stuff that carries into the playoffs. So it's something he needs to address quickly.
Well, and you say that this is something that will carry on in weeks to come, even when he does come back after passing protocols and all of that. I mean, it is what it is. He has COVID right now. He will not be available for this weekend's game, but there is the potential that he won't even be available for the next week's game. So how do you see the Packers' fate for the rest of the season kind of rolling out after this came to light yesterday?
Well, they're very blessed. I mean, it's like Dallas. The NFC North, I mean, what are they, 7-1? What's the next, the Vikings are 3-4, second place. So where it would become really interesting with the players is if he missed a couple of games and they lost those games, and if they went to second or third place, internally in that locker room, there would be a lot of pissed off people. There's going to still be that with guys. Nobody goes out there. I've been in those locker rooms. Nobody wants to go out there. It's offense versus defense. You're not doing your job, this and that. And there's a lot of pride there. And, they don't like losing games. They don't go out there and bang on each other, for 4 quarters and then, not have their quarterback. There will be a little pushback there. The only blessing is that, they're so far ahead in the NFC North, they haven't wrapped up. However, they've got the NFC South, they got the Buccaneers and the Saints, and, they're playing real well, and, there is that home field advantage. But the blessing for him right now, the only one I can see is that they're in a really easy division this year, and they're far and away ahead of the second place team, which actually has a losing record.
We're talking football with James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And James, not only Aaron Rodgers in the news, and we are certain he's destined for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but there's some other players who I believe could have and still maybe could someday become Hall of Famers, just given their God-given ability and great football talent. One of whom is Odell Beckham Jr., of the Cleveland Browns. Big story this week. We had seen his father put out a video on social media, like a 9-minute video of Odell Beckham Jr. running routes wide open, waving his hands, asking for the football, and Baker Mayfield of the Cleveland Browns, their quarterback, seeming not to throw him the football, not to want to throw him the football. A couple of things happened yesterday. The Cleveland Browns asked Odell Beckham Jr., just stay home. You don't have to come in. Just go ahead and stay home. Certainly looks like they are done with him. And the media asked questions of Baker Mayfield saying, are you hurt by this video that was released by Odell Beckham Jr.'s father? And Odell Beckham Jr. never came out and said, hey, my father did that. I didn't do that. I'm not down. No, he's been quiet. And Baker Mayfield says, I'm not hurt, but I'm surprised by it. And it seems to me like Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns are done with Odell Beckham Jr. But I'm wondering, James, would another team, give up assets for Odell Beckham Jr.? He comes not only with a heavy price tag, but he comes with a lot of baggage and a lot of drama. Do you think Odell Beckham Jr. and now his father might be adversely affecting his football career?
Yeah, take that kind of in order. So, yeah, a lot of people kind of hit me up about why the Browns, which are not known for, running things, they're just kind of coming around and rallying thanks to Baker and everybody else they went out and got. Why would they do this? And I said, listen, it's all about the locker room. And you've heard me say this to you guys on the air. It's all about the locker room. It's all about who you are behind the scenes and kind of poison. And for the Browns to say, look, you can just skip this without having a press conference or letting him do anything, obviously speaks very voluminously to the general managers out there that this guy continues to be an issue. There's always a general manager out there, Chris and Shannon, that, is desperate for their job. They're desperate to sell tickets. And a guy like him still sells tickets and jerseys. I would be very surprised that there's some people that are desperate. There always is every season, right? Not everybody can be winning. Somebody might say, hey, we'll give it a chance. I would assume it would be on a short leash, but I don't think the Browns are going to get much for them. But I've always been amazed by some people, but I think Odell has shown consistently that he is just not a good locker room guy, and he's not like a Calvin Johnson, a Megatron, or Randy Moss, or any of these guys that just can dominate the game no matter how talented he is. He's just not that guy. There's a lot of great receivers, so I don't see it. If I was a general manager, I wouldn't touch him beyond the price tag. So he really needs to do that. I remember the last thing I'll say about fathers. Every father, every mother. I love when Denzel Washington talked about his kid was playing at a game and I'm in college, and his mom was running alongside making sure his baby wasn't getting hurt. I love parents' passions for their kids. I never discount that. A lot of athletes have to go talk to their parents and say, hey, this is a social media world. It affects my contract. And he didn't even, you don't want to de-edify your father, but there was nothing common there. So I think, again, it just there had to be a lot going on behind the scenes with Odell and the staff and the general manager that had been bubbling up for them to make especially where we are this season, to make a right turn like that.
We will jump back in with James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But first, it's your 8 o'clock hour keyword, your shot at $1,000 now. Here it is.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword PAY to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's PAY to 200-200.
Text pay to 200. You've got more shots throughout the day on both stations to win $1,000. Talking some football with James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. James, Sunday night, the Cowboys versus the Vikings. It was Cooper Rush at the helm as Dak was recovering from that calf injury. Now, it seemed throughout the week that there was still some potential that Dak might still take the field. But we kind of learned during the game that they kind of decided earlier on in the week that Cooper Rush was going to be the one to start, that Dak, they would rest him during this one. Cowboys end up getting the win. What did you think of that Cooper Rush performance? And why do you think it was so secretive that Cowboys seemingly knew that Dak wasn't going to play, but didn't really release it until just before game time, really?
Yeah, I'll speak to that in reverse. I'm always amazed. I love the Bill Belichick's, or, for our San Antonio Spurs, Coach Popovich, family business is team business, and the rest of it's for the fans. You don't want to say your stud quarterback is hurt or anything else, because they will start devising different schemes and everything else and over-prepare for that because they watch every little inch of the game. So, again, I think that's brilliant for them to do that. And, to have a backup quarterback coming, of course, the Cowboys are killing it this year. They're running away with the NFC, East, and that's one of those things that really will be legendary for him. Even maybe not legendary, but definitely well remembered. And also, it kind of gives the Cowboys a lot of confidence to be able to rest Dak. And now I will say, not to take anything away from it, is the Vikings. They're 3-4, or at the time they were what?
3-3 at the time.
At the time, nothing overwhelming. However, it's still a 3-3 team, and I like it for the Cowboys for the future. And I like it that I think they're really thinking. I mean, Mike McCarthy's been there. He's done it before. He's done that through Brett Favre. He's done it through Aaron Rodgers. He's thinking about playoffs. And this is where you do your Jim Mora playoffs, but he's
playoffs.
He's really thinking about that, and he's resting his player. Coach Popovich used to do this. That is very smart, and I love it. And so I think it's smart on the coaches' thing. The players love that. Dak loves that. I promise you, all the players are going, "Hey, this coach is looking out for us as players. He's really thinking long term." I really think those are the subliminal factors in the locker room that carry things forward through the coach and through their quarterback, their leader.
Finally, James, just a horrible story this week in the NFL. And again, talking to you as a board member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, just such a huge talent. Henry Ruggs III, the 12th overall pick in 2020 for the Raiders at wide receiver, a man who just had so much talent and so much potential, and a man who I believe could have perhaps someday, worked his way into the Pro Football Hall of Fame by being a great NFL player. Just a horrible tragedy. He is apparently drinking impaired. We learned yesterday at the time of the car crash in Las Vegas, his vehicle was traveling at 156 miles an hour, rear-ended a vehicle that had a woman in it. She was only 23, and her dog. That vehicle exploded into flames. The Los Angeles Raiders, in less than 24 hours, released him. He is no longer a Raider. He faces 2 to 20 years in prison. Just your thoughts. Did the Raiders do the right thing releasing him immediately? And do you think Henry Ruggs III, I mean, obviously the most important thing here is the loss of life and the horrible tragedy for this woman losing her life and her family. But subsequently, Derek Carr, we played his audio earlier, James, saying somebody needs to love Henry Ruggs right now, and I am his friend, and I'm going to love him. What do you think he does from here? He may be facing prison time. Do you think he can ever work his way back into the NFL?
Wow, that is a great question. And again, it's hard to get around the death of life, but this is a sports show, so we'll be like you said. It's involuntary manslaughter, for sure, and that's it's a felony, and it would have to be, the NFL doesn't have a thing against felons, but you're going to have to, do kind of what Michael Vick had to do it, but Michael Vick wasn't at this level. You're going to have to serve a lot of time and do a lot of repenting and train and do a lot of stuff. I mean, I watched the series about what Michael Vick had to do along with his wife to do things, and this is going to even be harder. I just worry about the guy spiritually and emotionally. He made a mistake. He's young. I'm not, again, we all know that drunk driving kills more than all the wars combined every year. Definitely not, but I cannot tell you how many people I know that were drunk and driving and young. Not that makes it right. I'm not discounting that, but just it's a shame that one bad move. I obviously the best scenario would be if the woman didn't die and the dog and maybe there'd be something there, but it's just tough to. I don't know how he's going to live with. I just hope the guy is okay outside of football. Football for him, because here you are, you have all the talent in the world. You could have been a Pro Football Hall of Famer, definitely have a long career. You're known as a good guy, hard worker. As far as the Raiders releasing them, I like Mark Davis. I've been very blessed to spend time with him. I don't know if his dad would have done that. His dad was definitely a player. The dad was big on, I don't care if you're, what color you are, what your religion is, I'm going to stand behind you. However, I kind of see where they're at, because there's no room for did he do it or not do it. Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah.
So they had to do that for the PR standpoint. So I don't blame Mr. Davis for doing that. And it's just it's a yuck, as you said, Chris, Shannon. It's just a tough story. I mean, it's a shame, but I think his football career. I don't like to say this because I believe in comebacks. I love the Kurt Warner story. I love, the Michael Vick story. There's different kind of comebacks we can go on and on about. This one is going to be, it would be.
When I wrap, just take him down. I'll get out quickly. So just take him down and I'll wrap him quick as soon as he's done.
But I think the first thing he needs to do is talk to the family sincerely and behind the scenes, not as a PR stunt, and really go through that person spiritually, so he can be a good person beyond football, or be well person, is what I'm really hoping for.
Outstanding perspective, as always, from James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We're up against a break. James, thank you so much. Coming up, Andy Everett of UTSA football, the voice of UTSA athletics. Does he feel UTSA is being dissed not only by the College Football Playoff Ranking Committee, but by the media, who can't even spell UTSA right? That and a lot more coming up till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. We were going over there. That's why the had the abrupt ending of that segment. Was late. Texting James that we were late for a break. I usually let somebody say goodbye to us, but we were late that time. Was late. Sorry. All right. Jason Paniagua saying Dante Stallworth came back from killing someone in a vehicle. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I totally don't remember, Marcus. I totally don't remember Mike White being in the Cowboys camp. I'm sure he was. Let me see here. Marcus says he thought White was better than Cooper Rush. Now that based on White's performance last week, and who knew they would both win as backups on the same day. That's wild. I got to make sure Andy knows. Let me see if I've got a... Thank you. Andy Everett about to join us. I have transitioned. Thank you. We are 1 minute away from Andy Everett. I forgot that's mine. I should have sent that to Dave. I forgot to send that. So, I know what I thought you meant UTSA play call. For whatever reason, we've done because we joke with Andy that he's an ABBA fan, so that's why we put Dancing Queen there. Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely. No, you can leave it in. That's fine. Yeah, what we normally do, because it was a bye week, is we come back with Andy doing a play call from UTSA football, but it's not there. I usually send it, but because it was a bye week, I didn't send it. So here we come.
Back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
That's right. Little dancing queen from ABBA, Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA athletics, is man enough to say, yes, I'm an ABBA fan. I think that's cool. By the way, that new ABBA album's supposed to drop in November. I'm actually looking forward to that, but I'm not normal. He is the voice of UTSA athletics, the one and only Andy Everett. Andy, are you angry on two fronts? Are you angry that UTSA is being disrespected by the entire college football committee, nowhere in the top 25 of the college football playoff rankings? And why can't the media spell UTSA correctly? Are you chomping at the bit? Are you mad as hell and you're not going to take it anymore?
Well, one of the things that UTSA has been trying to do for a number of years is brand itself UTSA like 100 years ago UCLA did. We don't go around calling UCLA California Los Angeles or some other form or version of that. So that's the branding aspect. And yes, I would think that the head of the College Football Playoff Committee could get it right. On the other front, I was not surprised that UTSA is not in the top 25 for a couple of reasons. So disappointed, yes. Angry, I think that's a little strong because, unfortunately, Conference USA, other than UTSA, have had an abysmal season this year. None of its teams have a very good non-conference record except for UTSA. And the good teams in the conference who are always competitive with UTSA, like Western Kentucky, and I assume UAB will, never beat anybody that mattered in the non-conference season. So that strength of schedule thing matters to the committee. Now, what UTSA needs to have happen is they need to keep winning, obviously. And while we're violating a culture pillar by even talking about it, if they were to go 13-0, they're going to need some help from Cincinnati to lose in order to kind of get to one of those New Year's Day 6 games and probably lose twice, which isn't likely to happen. But look at this from another perspective. This is the first time UTSA has ever danced in this arena. No one knows who they are, and no one has any confidence that they're going to stay here. The vote of confidence that UTSA gave its coach and its athletic department on Sunday now puts them in the mix for when this team does have this happen to them, hopefully on an annual basis. They start to get the same respect that Central Florida did a few years ago when Scott Frost was there, and now with what Cincinnati's doing, and who knows, maybe in a few years they'll be on the same pace as a Miami or a Boise State or another independent school like Brigham Young that has had its time. But I don't think I'm angry about it. I understand why, but disappointed, sure. I'd like to see UTSA there, but we're not quite there yet.
So, Andy, since they, I put them in 14. UTSA in my top 25 after this poll came out. Do you see them realistically being in that top 25 and feel like they deserve a spot in there, especially after being ranked in the coaches poll and the AP poll?
Well, I look at the other teams that are there, and unfortunately, UTSA doesn't have any of them on their schedule. People are saying, well, Pittsburgh's a better team than UTSA. Well, how do you know? They've never played each other. And maybe they play 100 times and Pittsburgh wins 98 of them. But UTSA only has to beat them once if they get a chance to play them. And that's just an example of many of the teams. I think as the season progresses, November is usually a time where all of this stuff figures itself out and sorts itself out. The most disappointing thing, I think, from Roadrunner fans is say they do go 13-0. And they don't get invited to a New Year's Day bowl game, but they go to the Independence Bowl, and then they beat somebody there and go 14-0. All of a sudden, you put UTSA on the map, and you start to create buzz and excitement so that next time this rolls around, they do get that respect, that this isn't a flash in the pan program, that this isn't a one-time thing with the super seniors that they have on the team. So all of that is kind of in there. I think UTSA is a top 15 team, and I think there's teams in the top 10 that on the right day they would beat them. But the boys in the desert don't think so, and the guys that are handicapping games don't think so. So let UTSA go play somebody that's a top 15 team once we get to the postseason and see what happens.
Meanwhile, Andy, and we're talking with Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA football and UTSA athletics, while we're having these conversations about should UTSA be in the top 25 and should the media learn how to spell UTSA and this great contract extension that head coach Jeff Traylor received a number of days ago. Meanwhile, there's a team in El Paso, UTEP, and I look at their record and they are 6-2, and I look at their home record in the Sun Bowl and they are 4-0, undefeated at home this year. And I'm sure Jeff Traylor says don't eat the cheese, so I'm confident he's going to have his team ready for UTEP. But do you think maybe UTSA fans and observers who are not paying close attention might be taking UTEP a little lightly for a Saturday night's football game that'll be nationally televised on ESPN2?
Well, I think with everything that's gone on, everybody that is an adult around the program is going, this is a concerning game. But UTSA's players are addressing it like it's the next game, and it's not that big of a deal, and they're preparing for it the exact same way they did Louisiana Tech when people said that's going to be a tough place to play, and Western Kentucky and Memphis and Illinois and all of that. And it's up to the players to make this happen, and it's up to the coaching staff to put them in the right position to do so, and I have no doubt they will. I don't know what to make of UTEP because of UTEP's 6 wins are against some of the most awful football teams in college football. None of their FBS wins are against a team that's ranked in the top 100, including Louisiana Tech that dropped to 108 this past week in terms of ranking. The rest of them are Old Dominion and Southern Miss and New Mexico and New Mexico State, and all of those teams are way below Louisiana Tech. So, yeah, they beat the teams on their schedule that they were supposed to play, but then there could be a lot of people that would say, well, what about UTSA? They beat Illinois, and Illinois lost a bunch of Big Ten games. Well, they're not a very good Big Ten team, but they're a pretty good team. And Memphis didn't win the games that people thought they would after they lost to UTSA, after they won a game at home against Mississippi State earlier in the year. So I don't know what to make of UTEP. They've beaten the teams they're supposed to. The teams that were supposed to beat them, Florida Atlantic and Boise State, did. They have a good defense, and they have a boring, methodical offense that UTSA is going to have to not get frustrated by. But other than that, I think UTSA is clearly the better team. They're just going to have to prove it on Saturday night.
Andy, you alluded to it. Jeff Traylor gets a contract extension over the weekend. How important was it for UTSA to get this done, especially in a time where his name has been in conversation to be a head coach elsewhere?
Well, I think one of the things he talked about on the show last week, and I think even in some media sessions, was to tell the players, listen, your success is going to make me a household name. People are going to talk about me because we're having a good year and you're having a good year. And we're having a good year because you guys are doing it and you're performing. You can't control that. And even for a while, I don't know that he could control that. And so that was the message last week. And then I think every person in the world knows that if somebody's going to offer you a job that's going to pay significantly more than you're making right now, you're going to at least listen to the offer and see what people think. Anybody would potentially do that. Now, then you weigh whether you want to live in that community, you weigh what you have here, and all of those things, and then you make your decision. And I'm not surprised that Jeff made the decision that he made. He does feel very loyal to everybody he's around, including the players on this team. But to tell the players on Sunday night as they prepared for their first practice for UTEP, probably turned what would have been a lackluster practice. Well, UTSA rarely has any of those, but just still having that seed of doubt in the back of their minds and coming off the bye week and trying to work out the rust and getting the people that were injured back out there. all of that went away as soon as they made the announcement in the team room that he was staying and that he had signed a long-term contract, and they were ready to go play Alabama 15 minutes later if you'd asked him to do so.
Great line. He is Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA athletics. Finally, Andy, all of this, the Jeff Traylor signing the contract extension, and Jeff Traylor tweeting about the unranked UTSA Roadrunners, obviously kind of sending a message and saying, hey, we know we're unranked now by the College Football Playoff Committee, by the stories of UTSA's name not being spelled correctly. Do you think these three things will add some fire to the football team Saturday night in El Paso?
Oh, yeah. And coaches always do things to fire up their team. Bulletin board material is real. Players and coaches won't talk about it and say, oh, yeah, it's real, because then it takes away from their preparation for what they have to do on the field. But this team is a good football team, and I think people need to realize these guys are all pretty good. Now, are they as good as the top 10 teams in the country? We probably will never find out because they won't play. But this is a good football team. It's a fun football team to watch. And there has been more positive buzz around UTSA in the last 4 weeks than there has been in the 30 years I've been in San Antonio. So it's time for people to get on the bandwagon. And the bandwagon has plenty of room for everyone. And buy tickets and go to those last two home games and get ready to go to a potential championship game and buy season tickets for the future, because this is going to last. There's players that you've never heard of yet that are going to be pretty good when they get here, and maybe as good as the group that's here right now. And I'm talking about those who are redshirting and those who had to redshirt because of injuries this year. So this is going to be something that's going to be a fun thing to do for a long time. And it would be great that every week the opponent shows up and 40, 50,000 people are in the Alamo Dome and they have no chance to win because the building's too loud. So, and then the other part of that factor is for the business community to get involved and start investing in UTSA. You now have a viable thing to invest in, and that's something I think that we can all be proud of and get behind.
Andy Everett will have the call Saturday night, 9:15 kickoff, because it's nationally televised on ESPN2. So pregame 7 o'clock on Ticket 760 in San Antonio. If you're outside San Antonio, you can listen on the iHeartRadio app. Andy Everett, have a great call on Saturday night. We'll be listening. Thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. See you all next week.
All right. And Shannon, I love what Andy's saying there. You know, this is going to be big, and it's going to be big for a long time. And now's the time to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I'm excited for them, especially, as we mentioned, nationally televised game on ESPN2. Maybe you can sway some voters here because Andy's right. You know, he made a great point of all the teams ranked in that top 25. UTSA isn't going to get a chance to play any of them. So you're going to have to take them for what they're worth against the teams that they do play, and getting a nationally televised game goes a long way in doing that.
That is a big deal. Shannon, outstanding as always. Let's do this again in 21 hours.
Friday.
Shannon's so excited about Colts versus the Jets tonight. My gosh, that's going to be such a great game.
I may mess around and watch the whole thing.
Super Bowl III rematch. I mean, the Colts are really going to be trying to get the Jets back for that Super Bowl III loss. Thanks to Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA football. Thanks to James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And thanks to the boss man, Brian Gann, for doing the heavy lifting all morning long. Sark's press conference later today. Will there be a monkey question? We'll pay attention to that. We'll see you tomorrow. Adios, amigos. Woo! Woo! All right, y'all.
So, Chris, I responded to your private chat. It's not what you think it is.
I just saw that, and I guess that's what I get for wishful thinking.
It was sent to me and two others, so I'm guessing there was no response from
Interesting.
anyone.
Well, and I'm wondering. And well, let me go ahead and say goodbye to everybody, and then we'll finish that. See y'all later. Adios.